Good afternoon to all our viewers who are watching us right now through Facebook Live. Welcome to the second part of the Kilapsaw 3.0 Women+Water. We are celebrating four most significant events this March: the National Women's Month, the National Fire Prevention Month, the Philippine Water Week from March 15 to 22, and finally the World Water Day on March 22. Kilapsaw 3.0, on its third year, will tackle the role of women as agents of change in three sectors of our society. First is the environment sector, second is the water sector and industries, and finally the fire service. And to introduce to you our speaker, she is the former general manager of Davao City Water District, a chair of Aqua Haring Southeast Asia Capacity Building Network, a technical consultant of the Philippine Association of Water District, and a network officer of the Philippine Capacity Building Network, an advisor of the past chair of Philippine Water Partnership, and an advisor past president of the Philippine Watershed Management Coalition. And she is also the executive director of Maynilad Water Academy. Without further ado, our humble and dedicated leader of the MWA, Engineer Rodora and Gamboa.
Thank you very much, Kay. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Women's Month and happy World Water Day for March 22. We are also celebrating the World Water Week this week. I would like to thank Ms. Carminda Arevalo for inviting me today to speak to you about women and water. If you may allow me to share my screen. Can you see my screen now? Okay, thank you. Okay, my topic is about women and water. As Kay has mentioned, this is the second training of the series of trainings of NHCP Museo El Deposito. And I was tasked to present a little bit about Maynilad Water Academy, and my thoughts on women and water and gender mainstreaming in the water sector, and some message to the women and youth and on how to be agents of change. So let me start off with my presentation. First about Maynilad. I think a lot of you heard about Maynilad already, but let me tell you a little bit more in detail. We are the largest water concessionaire in terms of customer base in the Philippines. We are expected to deliver water and wastewater services in the west zone of Metro Manila until 2037. And if you will notice, we have been in existence since 1997, but it was reprivatized in 2007, and now it is being managed by Maynilad Water Holding Company, which is owned by Metro Pacific Investment Corporation, the MCI Holdings, and Marubeni Corporation. They are now the new owners, and we are under the new management. Since Maynilad took over in 2007, let me just give you a brief of how we did since then. In 2007, we only covered 81% in terms of the coverage, no? And then in 2020, as of last year, we have already covered 94% of the west zone of Metro Manila. And in terms of service, 46%, or only 46% enjoyed 24-hour service in 2007, with an average pressure of 7 psi. That's 53%. But now in 2020, 98% enjoy 24-hour service, with 98% also having 7 psi. So from 704 connections. Now we are serving 48 million connections or 9.8 million population. Our commitment, Maynilad's commitment, is to continue the expansion of the distribution line to unserved areas, meeting the standards of Philippine national standards for drinking water using advanced technology for reducing water loss, and accelerate sewerage and sanitation programs. And the last one, which this is, I want to deal more on this, contribute to nation building through our services, investments, and advocacies and corporate social responsibility programs. And this is where the Maynilad Water Academy come into the picture. The Maynilad Water Academy is the first academy in the Philippines dedicated to the advancement of water and wastewater capacity development. I think until now, it is the only academy in the Philippines as such. And we envision ourselves to be a world-class center of excellence in water, sanitation, hygiene, training, capacity development, and education, providing quality training, develop competencies in water, sanitation, and hygiene, that's WASH, and advocate in nation building and create an environment for learning, benchmarking of practices in the Philippines and across Asia. This is also because one of the core values of Maynilad is love for country. And by love of country, we need to partner with the government in terms of nation building. That's why we also partner now with NHCP and also the Museo El Deposito. And what do we do in the academy? Our main focus is knowledge sharing and education on water sanitation and hygiene on WASH. This is for government employees, which I think a lot of you here are government employees, for water districts, LGUs, water service providers, private companies, students, teachers, NGOs, and both local and international organizations. And this is our path to water education. For those of you who do not know, we have study tours in Maynilad. We have water camps for students and for the teachers. We conduct water education forum, advocacy for guidance counselors, teaching demo for water education. And now, because of the pandemic, we have virtual teaching demo, webinars, virtual conferences. Aside from those, maybe after the pandemic or maybe after we have the vaccine, we will continue with our exchange programs, conferences, workshops, trainings, and plant visits. So in terms of our support for the K-12 program, we have developed together with the UP NISMED, National Institute for Science and Math Education, and the POPSMER and the UNESCO. We developed a 15-module teaching learning resource package. This is for teachers in the K-12 program. The purpose of this is to promote water education and also so that the teachers, even if they don't have that much knowledge on water, they can teach about water and sanitation. Examples of the modules we have: how do we save water, use and save water, that's module 1, how do you keep water clean. So these modules, the next slide will show that each module, we have module number, and then there's a suggested grade level and suggested topics for integration and correlation. Those topics are for K-12. So our approach in water education is WASH-centric. So water education, we have for science and math, we have the junior water camp. And teachers water camp, we have for social studies, Ugnayang Tubig at Kasaysayan. And hopefully we are going to launch the area of language, literature, and water and sanitation, and poetry and water and sanitation. Okay. For professionals, we have these trainings. I'm not going to go over all these trainings, but I just want to point out that most of these trainings are highly technical, because in the water industry, a lot of technical aspects, technical things are being done. And this is the capacity gap of water utilities. That's why we have this academy trainings flashed in the screen. We are accredited by the civil service or recognized by the civil service because we have these technical programs. Civil service said completion of learning and development from the academy by government employees shall be recognized as training hours, which can be included in their personal data sheet and can be used to apply for promotion. So we have a lot of government employees who are recipients of the trainings of the academy. And usually the trainings are done in Metro Manila, but we also go outside of Metro Manila, such as Legazpi, Naga, Pampanga, Bulacan, Baguio, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao as far as Cotabato and Marawi. We also have our international reach. It's either they come here or we go there in Indonesia, Malaysia, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Kenya, and other countries as well. And because of this, we were awarded Best Water Operator Partnership in Spain, Community Program in Indonesia, and also Excellence in Provision of Literary and Education. So much for the Maynilad and Maynilad Water Academy. Let's go to another topic now, women and water. In the next slides, we will answer questions. How is your water? How does water affect women? How are women in the water sector? And how do we attract women to the sector? So talking about water, how is your water? I'm not so sure if I'm sure you know where your water is coming from, who's the water provider. But according to the Philippine Water and Sanitation Master Plan and Philippine Statistics Authority, PSA, 87.68% of the population is getting water from sources that are safe. And so it's only about 12.30% are unsafe. However, where do they get water? Only 44% get it from the own faucet. The rest, they get it from a community system, pipe, tube well, which is far from their house, etc. So let me give you another statistics. This is for the total population in the Philippines. However, if you're going to do it on a regional level, the level of access of water is divided into three. Level 1, meaning they get directly from the point source, and 45% is getting directly from the point source, meaning it's either they get it from their balloon, the well, or they go to the spring, they go to the river from very far from their house. Yes, and then 11.2% is getting from a common faucet. So there's one faucet from their house, and then everybody shares from that faucet. Sometimes it's also very far. Only 43% or about 44% gets water directly from the tap or from the waterworks, which are provided by the water districts, which are provided by Maynilad, and then some private companies. But if you look at it on a regional level, so if in the Philippines, there's 44% having access to safe water, only 45% do not have access to level 3. On a regional level, look, a lot of regions have level 1 and level 2 more than level 3, such as Cordillera, Ilocos, Cagayan Valley, Mimaropa, Bicol, Western Visayas, and Western Mindanao, Toxargen, and the Muslim Mindanao. So if there is no water, women are generally affected by this. And how are they affected? According to WHO and UNICEF, women and girls are responsible for water collection in 8 out of 10 households with water off premises, that is level 1 and level 2, which means reducing the population with limited drinking water services will have a strong gender impact. I think the first speaker last Tuesday also mentioned that this is the effect of access to water to women. Secondly, women are affected in terms of this neonatal deaths, 1 million deaths each year are associated with unclean birth. Infections account for 26% of neonatal death and 11% of maternal mortality. So safe drinking water is very important even for women in that aspect. According to UNICEF, about 44% million pregnant women have sanitation-related hookworm infections that pose a considerable health burden in developing society. That's because of improper sanitation. And the last one, fewer than 50 countries have laws or policies that specifically mention women's participation for rural sanitation or water resource management. So the question is, if women are affected by issues related to water and sanitation, why are there few women in the water sector? So before this will be answered, let us first see, are there really few women in the water sector? So globally, according to World Bank and the International Water Association, the IBNet and UNIDO, so World Bank, they said that only 17.7% are women. IWA, that's 17%. IBNet, that's 24.5%. And UNIDO says it's 24.8% are women. So based on the global scale, there are really a few women in the water sector. However, that's for global. Let's go local. PSA says that for water supply and sewerage, only 23.5% are women and 76.5% are men. So why is this so? Why are we not attracting women to join the water sector? So there was also a study by the World Bank looking at attracting women to the world water sector. And these are the barriers. One, the stereotyping that work in water utilities is not suited for women. It is a man's job. I have been hearing that several years ago, that it's a man's job. So that's the stereotyping. Then they lack role models in the water sector. Wala silang tinitingala. Sino ba talaga naging successful women in the water sector? They lack knowledge about opportunities in the water sector. They have low level of female graduates in the technical fields, and the stereotyping of girls, that girls are incapable of technical studies. Hanggang administrative studies lang daw ang mga babae. Then no exposure of girls and women to the technical fields. So with all these barriers, they also proposed some of the approaches. One is outreach programs for schools and colleges through career talks, having role models and other outreach campaigns. And then they can also have female representatives to present the work of the organization to the schools, colleges, communities. They can go outside and show what they do, and to tell the women out there that they are capable to do things in the water utility. Another approach may be a bring your daughter to work day. By the way, those approaches like career talks, immersing women in the utility, we have been doing that in Maynilad through our immersion programs. Another program which are being done by other utilities abroad is Bring Your Daughter to Work Day. So they allow their daughter to go to them at work and see how they do in the utility, so that their daughters will be inspired to also do the work of a person in the water sector. Another approach is to promote a scholarship for women in the STEM studies, because not many women are doing STEM studies right now. So it might be good to have a scholarship for women on STEM studies. And the last one is coming up with international exchange programs, so the women will be exposed also to the international field. So this is only the first part, attracting women to the water sector. In the employment cycle of the utility sector, it has three phases. One is the attraction. I'm not going to discuss in detail the rest because the attraction is the very first part, but the other areas are the recruitment, retention, and advancement. So if women are already attracted, the recruitment part is again a challenge. So the challenge, the barrier then is that sometimes recruitment is not inclusive. The preference is still more on male. So there need to have a policy on this for every organization. That's one. Then secondly, the women, the girls who enter the organization should have this school to work transition and all those things. Now they are hired. The next question is how to retain women in the organization. First one really is to have a work-life balance. Yeah, this is a long discussion, but I think everybody would know that there has to be a work-life balance in the organization. Family-friendly policy, fair wages, work environment, sexual harassment policies, and work facilities and amenities, such as some utilities have this daycare, nursing room, etc. Then the last one is advancement. Women should continue on education, training, mentorship, and networking opportunities so that they will have also an opportunity to be leaders in the organization, after they do the work as technical personnel or non-technical personnel. Sorry. But the question now is, are there women in the organization now more than few years back? So if we look at the slide, in 2011 to 2006, you see the growing trend of women in the water utilities, in the water sector. And for me, based on my experience, I think now it's more than 20%, and it is still growing. So if we do gender mainstreaming in the organization, then this will grow more fast in terms of including women in the organization. That is why um, Education Secretary Leonor Briones is encouraging the women out there to take up the field of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. She said that for so long, there have been stereotypes of what courses or fields of study women should engage in. But yeah, she's encouraging women to take up STEM. Now, are there really few women in the STEM course? Ched said, my next slide, only 29% of the women are taking up engineering and technology. So that means there is really shortage of women taking up engineering and technology courses. So that's the background. Now, if we want to do gender mainstreaming in the organization, I have here one slide indicating the gender mainstreaming recipe, as we call. So what is R? R means role model. For gender mainstreaming, there has to be a role model in the water sector. So the women, the children who are studying, they would have somebody they would look up to, or even the workers already in the organization will have that role model. Then the E stands for encompassing all aspects of water, all impacts of water to women. What do I mean encompass all impacts of water to women? When we say gender mainstreaming or role of women in water, it is not only that um, women should have an active participation in decision making. It is not only that women should be treated equal as men, but in the water sector, utilities should look at areas where there is no water, because we know that women are impacted by no water, because in the studies I previously cited a while ago, that they do the collection, they do most of the things being using water in the households. Yeah. Then the C is champion and commitment from the top. To do gender mainstreaming, there has to be a champion who will really push the agenda, and a commitment from the top. I have seen several organizations in the Philippines in which only the mostly women below the echelon are encouraged to do gender mainstreaming, but then the commitment is not from the top level. So it is not really, it has not been very successful. Kumbaga parang compliance na lang. Because for government, I think there's a 5% of the budget is allocated for gender and development. I stands for inclusive environment. As I mentioned, there has to be no preference for male or female, but it is inclusive. P is purposive. So when we do gender mainstreaming, there has to be a purpose why it is being done. It is not only to comply with what the PCW says that has to be done. It is not only like because we want to exhaust or to use the 5%. It is not only because COA says so, na dapat ubusin yung 5% for gender and development. So it has to be purposive. And the last one, we can all do this if you have education from the girl child to adulthood. And education in gender is continuous. And when we say education, it is not only classroom or online, but it is really education in practice. So that is the gender mainstreaming recipe. Come up with a model encompassing all impacts to women, with a champion who is committed from the top and who says that we should have an inclusive environment and purposive on why we're doing this. And to do this, we all have to be educated. Okay, that's the recipe. So my message to the women and youth is that women is a basic human right. Water is a basic human right, rather. It should not be supplied and provided, not only be supplied and provided, but should also be managed well for sustainability. And we know that studies show that women's participation in the water sector improves efficiency in water management. And the second, but only few women are attracted to join the sector. That's why in the previous slide, I showed the gender mainstreaming recipe. If that is, if you want, you can follow, you can explore cooking the recipe. And I encourage women to find your way in the water sector. What do I mean by that? It is not only because you're technical, because you're not non-technical, you cannot enter the water sector. Even the non-technical can enter the water sector. I'll give you an example. One of my colleagues, Dr. Santa Ana, Oliver Santa Ana, who is an educator. He was psychologist, psychometrician, studies on Islamic studies, etc. There's no water in his educational attainment and experience. So when he entered into Maynila, the first question, anong gagawin ko dito? Sabi niya, anong gagawin ko dito? Ano ang aking role? But eventually, after several years, he was able to do a lot of things in the water sector, changing the mindset of young women, the youth and the adults on how to view the water sector, and also incorporating the technical and the non-technical, and merging this one, because water is not only technical, it is also social. So we need a diverse group of people to be in the water sector. And the last one is, I would like to assure those who wants to be in the water sector that the experience of being able to give water to the public is fulfilling and gratifying, because water is life. I would like to end this with a quote from Jean Ran. Everybody says women are like water. I think it's because water is the source of life and it adapts itself to its environment. Like women, water also gives itself whenever it goes to nurture life. Yeah. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Engineer Dora Gamboa, for that very fruitful discussion. And before we proceed to our question and answer side, let me acknowledge the presence of the following organizations and school. Kapitan Eddie T. Reyes Integrated Schools Division Office of Tapat, and Girl Scout of the Philippines Basilan Council with us this afternoon. Zamboanga del Norte Council, Sultan Kudarat Council, Quirino Council, Zamboanga del Sur Council, Zamboanga City Council, and Girl Scout of the Philippines Lanao del Norte. And we also have GSP in Pangasinan and the schools from Tapat Taguig Integrated School, Bagong Bayan National High School, and Western Mindanao region, GSP also, and GSP from Cagayan Council. And also Escuela Elementaria de Tugbungan, Zamboanga City, SDO. Ayan, meron tayong mga live viewers ngayon from Mindanao. Good afternoon to you all. And thank you for watching the Kilapsaw 3.0. Ayan. So, ang ating first question, ma'am, mula sa ating viewer, si Mr. Ferdinand Pagaw. What is the possibility of tapping the Laguna Lake for the future source of potable water in the whole of NCR? Diba ba meron tayong since part natin na ang concessionaire ng within Metro Manila ang Maynilad, is there a possibility na makakuha pa ng clean water source from Laguna Lake?
Hindi lang it's not only a possibility. We are already getting water from Laguna Lake. Ngayon pa lang. Actually, if hindi ko lang na present dito yung flow ng water natin, but our water originally it comes from the Umiray watershed, then it goes to Angat, then to Ipo, and then to La Mesa treatment plant, and then it goes to the residents, a reservoir, and then the residents. Kung titingnan ninyo, ang layo nung La Mesa papunta doon sa southern part, Muntinlupa, yung mga Dalabang. So, instead of them getting water from that area, we developed another system getting water from Laguna Lake already. Pero konti lang yun, konting-konti lang talaga. Why? Because mas mahal kasi to develop that Laguna Lake dahil hindi na maganda ang Laguna Lake as quality ng Laguna Lake. I think you know that, no? Hindi maganda ang quality ng tubig. I think the question din is, pwede ba siya sa whole NCR?
Opo.
Yung kung pwede, kung sabing pwede naman siguro, pero hindi siya pwedeng lahat na buong NCR. Kasi napakamahal to develop the Laguna Lake as a water source. Oo, kasi marumi na siya. Kaya ang source natin ay nagbumula pa rin doon sa Angat at saka sa Ipo. Kaya nga very particular din kami in terms of protecting the watersheds of Angat and the Ipo, because doon nanggagaling yung ating tubig na
Tubig
iniinom dito
sa
sa
NCR.
Metro Manila.
Opo.
Kaya part doon sa aming modules na binibigay, yung modules ng 15 modules na
Yes,
nandoon
apa.
is talking about the catchment area sa watersheds kasi gusto namin pakita sa mga bata na dito nanggagaling ang ating tubig, kailangan protektahan natin. We should take care of the environment. Thank you kay Ferdinand.
Ayan, kay Sir Ferdinand. Para naman sa kaalaman din po ng lahat, bago pa magkaroon ng systematic water source ang Maynila, yun yung tinatalakay natin sa Museo El Deposito. Ang tubig ng Maynila ay nanggagaling sa Marikina River noong panahon ng mga Kastila. So, merong tayong El Deposito dito sa San Juan del Monte na doon nilalagak yung tubig natin at dinidistribute sa iba't ibang bahagi ng Maynila. At second question, ma'am. You've mentioned earlier na mataas yung neonatal death, which is 26%, tapos yung 11% ng maternal death ng mga kababaihan na nagbubuntis. Na ang primary cause nito ay unclean or unsafe water. Is there any initiative from the public or the private sector to address such incidents? Kung di man natin siya particular na babalitaan, pero sobrang seryosong issue nito para sa mga kababaihan, especially dun sa mga province na walang access sa malinis na tubig.
Tama yung question na yun. Thank you, Kano. Dito kasi sa Metro Manila and even those with water districts, yung nakakakuha ng level 3. Di ba yung sinabi ko kanina, level 3, level 2, level 1. May access sa water na level 3, walang problema doon. But level 2 and level 1, ang concern nila is more of the quantity of water. So, hindi sila masyado concerned sa quality ng water. Ilang municipalities ang napuntahan ko, ang sabi nila, okay naman yan, so pinapatest nyo ba yung tubig? These are barangay waterworks, rural waterworks, pinapatest nyo ba yung tubig? Sabi nila, hindi, kasi okay naman wala namang namamatay, naiinom nga namin, hindi naman kami namamatay. So sa kanila, okay lang yun. But then, the long-term effect of that is doon na nga sa babae, sa pagbubuntis, may mga sakit, may mga bata, may abnormal, yung mga ganon. So, ang isang approach nito is one is really educating the public on water safety. At itong gaano ka-importante na malinis yung tubig na iniinom mo. That is the very first one. Again, I go back to our modules, kasama yon. And then secondly, magtutulungan yung mga tao because they cannot treat the water themselves unless they boil. Diba, ganun yung
papakuluan muna.
Yes, oo. They can group together, form a community so that they can develop their own water system with the support of the local government. Malaking role ang local government dito sa pagdating sa mga ganun. Kasi in terms of provision of water, we have MWSS, we have the water districts around 22%. The rest are being provided by the local government, cooperatives, RUWASA, BAWASA, mga small private companies. But in Local Government Code of 1991, kasama sa mandate ng local government is for them to provide the basic services to its constituents, kasama doon ang tubig.
Yan. Kaya ma'am, yung very important din nakasama natin ngayon yung mga Girl Scout of the Philippines and councils from Mindanao. Kasi hindi man natin nare-reach out talaga yung mga rural areas, especially in Mindanao. Marahil ilan sa mga kababaihan natin doon talagang nakakaranas ng ng kakulangan sa malinis na tubig. Kaya one way talaga is to educate. Kaya inaanyayahan din namin yung mga kasama natin sa Girl Scout of the Philippines na i-share din itong knowledge na natutunan nila ngayon sa discussion natin ito. Di ba ma'am? Opo, napakamagandang agent sila talaga ng change. Di ba po? And
Napakaganda yung sinabi mo. Girl Scout of the Philippines, andito sila. Kayo
Opo.
ang pwedeng gawin yung programa, yung itong Women and Water, yung knowing the impact of women and paano makatulong yung either the government and the other stakeholders para matulungan yung mga kababaihan.
Yan, correct ma'am. And for our last question po, yan. Kayo ma'am, personally, how do you involve yourself mula nung umpisa on gender and development?
Anong taon ba yun? Matagal na yun mga siguro late 90s or early 2000 pa. Yung sinasabi kong role model, meron kasi ako mga dalawang role models pagdating sa gender and development. And well, ang isa dito ay si late attorney Dory Abisado. And then the other one is si Ma'am Patria Montemayor. Sila ang dating board of directors ng Davao City Water District. And I was still the department manager at that time. So sila yung parang nauna pagdating sa gender issue. So they introduced the gender sensitivity trainings, yung mga ganon. And then at the time, kami sa mga water district, lalo yung mga lalaki, no? Sasabihin nila, ano ba yan? Parang, kailangan pa ba yan? So we were very skeptical. But then they really persevered. Nagkaroon ng training, nagkaroon ng programa, and then eventually, para nagkaroon na ng aha moment, oo nga no, kasi I myself, pupunta sa field, kaya naman ng mga babae, yung mga ginagawa rin ng babae, ng lalaki, pero kailangan lang, wag na nating ilagay na dapat lalaki lang. So eventually, nag-change yung aking mindset, and now I am part of advocating gender and development, not only in Davao City Water District at the time, but also on the national scale. As a matter of fact, isang picture ko doon kanina, I was a speaker in gender of water in the Asian Development Bank conference. So ganun yung meron akong tinitingnan na model, and since they are board of directors, may commitment from the top, yung aking recipe na sinabi, may commitment from the top, at saka may purpose yung paggawa ng mga programa. So well, at that time, meron pa nga kami ginawang libro. I co-authored one book on gender and development in the 90s. So yun ang aking naging and until now that I'm in the private sector, I'm still an advocate on gender and development kahit na nasa private, because in Maynilad, the inclusivity is not an issue. Pagpasok mo doon, whether lalaki ka, babae, pwede ka sa field, pwede ka sa top echelon. The training is not only for men, the training is for everyone. So it's really nasa iyo lang. Kung gusto mo mag-aral, kung gusto mo pa mag-pursue into a higher position, then it's up to you. Wala yung discrimination na hindi babae ka eh. So the private sector can also practice gender and development. It's not for government. It is universal.
Thank you, ma'am. Ayan. Question from Sir Ferdinand Pagaw. How can we from the education sector, is from the DepEd Division Taguig Pateros, can be part of Water Academy since DepEd core values is makakalikasan? How can we tie up with your agency, ma'am?
Magandang tanong yan, Ferdinand Pagaw. Actually, one of the reasons why we're doing this is we're promoting our water education. You can call us, email us, and we can talk about how we can partner in this area. Actually, yung modules namin, we already gave that to DepEd. Meaning they have already reviewed it kasi magpa-review ng module sa DepEd. Nung ko lang nalaman na hindi pala ganun kadali. Dadaan ka parang kang dadaan sa butas ng karayom kasi nga They really have to, ano, diba? They really have to make sure na that will answer the needs of the children, no?
Students.
So dumaan na rin sa legal nila yung MOU na pipirmahan namin with Secretary Briones. Inabot lang kami ng pandemic. Yung inabot ng pandemic, kaya hindi natuloy. But then, since we own the modules, then we can share it to you, Mr. Pagao, and we will talk on how we can partner on this. And we're very glad that you're interested in this advocacy. Oo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Meron pa ba tayong mga pahabol na tanong from our live viewers? Yan. So,
Sa live viewers.
oo nga, very active ang ating live viewers today. Ayan, so, ayan. Maraming salamat po, Engineer Dora Gamboa, for your lecture and this very fruitful discussion. And to end up our webinar, let me call on the Shrine Curator of Museo El Deposito, Mr. Jonel Birabusa.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So, good afternoon again to everyone. My name is John Albir, Shrine Curator 2 of the Museo El Deposito. So again, we would like to thank everyone who joined us today for this second day of our webinar series entitled Kilapsaw 3.0, which we do annually since 2019 when we opened the museum. So of course, we would like to thank our guest speaker who graced us this afternoon, Ma'am Rodora Gamboa. Ma'am, thank you very much for supporting again the programs of the museum. Of course, we would like to thank, of course, the rest of the staff of the Maynilad Water Academy with Mr. Oliver Santa Ana, who is with us today. Sir, thank you for joining us. Of course, the program will not be a possibility without the approval of the management of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, headed by our chairman, Dr. Rene Escalante, our OIC Executive Director, Carminda Arevalo, our OIC Deputy Executive Director, Mr. Alvin El Cid, and our Chief for the Historic Sites and Education Division, Ma'am Gina Sibatuhan, and our Supervising Historic Sites Development Officer, Mr. Brian Paraiso, and of course, our very supportive colleagues from the 27 museums of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines from the parts of Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So for this day, the very main purpose of our lecture for this day is really to encourage women to be involved in the women's sector. Because after all, like what our speaker said, women are greatly affected on the impacts on the water supply and sustainability in terms of health and sanitation. So, from the word Kilapsaw, the word Kilapsaw is actually a Tagalog word. It means ripple. So, from the word itself, we want to create a ripple effect, a change effect, wherein we want to educate one sector, and this sector can educate the other sectors. So last year we had a talk about the health sector and their perspective on water sanitation and education. This year we had a talk on the women and their perspective on the water sanitation. So we hope that we could include more sectors in the coming years for our Kilapsaw program. So again, we would like to thank you all for joining us, and I hope you can join us again next week for our last lecture program for the Kilapsaw webinar series. So next week on March 23, we will have our last lecture. It will focus naman on fire prevention, since March is also the Fire Prevention Awareness Month, and how women can make a change or impact in the fire prevention. So muli, maraming salamat po on behalf of the staff of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, Museo El Deposito. Miss Kai? Nakamute, Miss Kai?